in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hi, I'm Jamie Fouché, and welcome to Exploring Hobbies. And we've got Ian Dow with us, and he is going to be sharing his hobby of scale plastic modeling. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. So why don't we get started with explaining to everybody what scale plastic modeling is all about?
Scale plastic modeling is I'd like to say it's the art of reproducing a model that is comes basically in a kit form. I brought an example here of a model, and as you see, it comes in a box and it's all sealed up, and then there are a bunch of little, they called runners or sprues, and you have all these little pieces on there, and what your job is to take all the pieces off and assemble them into something that resembles that.
Okay.
And that is the long and the short of it, basically, and that is also the hardest part of doing it too, is getting something that looks like what you want it to be or resemble what you think it should look like.
That starts out in pieces,
exactly,
in a box.
In a box. That's right.
Very good. How did you get started in scale plastic modeling?
I got started, but this thing's going to fight me all the way. I got started when I was very young. I think I was about 6 years old, and at J.L. Hudson's over in Northland, they used to have, for your birthday, you could go there and you had lunch, and then there was this big box that you could go into and get a birthday gift. And I think I was 5 or 6 years old when it happened. And at that point, of course, that was just the greatest. And I remember going there, and I think I had a hot dog and fries or chips for lunch. And I got to go over to this box, and I pulled out this small airplane. It was a little model kit, and I think there was 2 of them. I think they were like red and green or something like that, not 100%. And so I took them home, and my mom was kind of like, these aren't really like toys. This is like you build it, and then you can't do anything with it, but look at it. But I wanted it. I was like, I had to have it. And so, of course, I didn't even know how to operate the cereal bowl when I was 6. So I did not build the model myself. I'm pretty sure my dad did. And I have no idea whatever happened to those. Probably because I tried to play with them, they broke. But I just love the idea of like a miniature something small, something that is life size, and you can turn it into something tiny. And that's, I think, where I got my love for it from the very beginning. I used to love Matchbox cars, anything small, and that's, I've always liked that. It's they remind me of something very jewel-like, and a friend of mine once said that about the really small things, and I said that's exactly what it is. It just seemed like little pieces of art. And so I've been doing it since I was, like I said, I think I was 5 or 6 when I got my first model.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah.
So are there different types of scale plastic modeling?
There's all kinds of scales. There's, let's see, this is one of your smaller ones. This is a 1/87th scale model. It's actually usually used in the railroads. It's very small. They can go from, like I said, that's one of the smaller ones, 1/87 for a vehicle. Airplanes can go down to 1/144th, and the larger the number, the smaller the vehicle or the scale is.
Okay.
So something that's 1/6 scale would mean it's 6 times smaller than actual size. So something that's 1/144th would be 144 times smaller than the actual size. And some things they have to make that small because you take like an airplane or a rocket or something like that. If you tried to make it 1/35th or 1/16th or something, it would just be huge. So you have to make something really small. So something that's 144 scale still might be this big because it's so big in real life. So, and I've got several examples here of the car on the table is 1/43rd scale. The little tank in the front is 1/72nd scale. The little armored car is 1/48th scale. The little plane is 1/72nd scale. They're all different sizes. Depends on, some people like to build only 1/72nd for airplanes. Some people only like to build 1/135th in armor or 1/176. I like to build a little bit of everything because I get bored with one subject, so I'll build everything.
All right.
So,
Do you have like a favorite project or something that was
subject or-
particularly challenging for you that you could say, you know, the coolest thing I ever built was?
The little Abrams tank in the front, that one was particularly challenging, and it was probably the most rewarding. The goal is always that you see something in your mind and you're trying to get it to the completed stage. Sometimes you get exactly how you picture it.
Yeah.
Usually there's like there's a part that just, you know, you're like, and then you're trying to get it to where you like it. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into doing it. If you looked at the tank, what color would you say it was? Tan,
beige.
desert color, beige.
But I see black and green and gray, and I mean, you know, the more you look at it, there's
Exactly.
a lot of layers of stuff in there.
Very
I'm
good.
Sure.
That's really good, because a lot of people, they look at it, it's like, oh, that's really neat. It's brown, and it's like it is, but there's a lot of different color variation, and that's probably the biggest thing is you have to use a lot of subtle colors, and we call them washes and filters and all kinds of stuff like that to try and make the colors accentuate them, but you don't want them like too, I don't want to say too garish, but you don't want to, you know, pop too much. And it's all a balancing act. And it also depends too, like what light you're looking at them. This room, obviously, it's a studio and there's a lot of light and it's beautiful, and you look at some of the stuff and it looks really nice. And then if you put it in a dark room, all the colors wash out and then you don't see them. And which will lead into my next part is that we, as modelers, we compete with them. There are shows that happen, probably a dozen times a year or so in this area. And when I say this area, anywhere from like Michigan, Ohio, Toronto, 4-hour kind of, you know, radius sort of thing. And, you know, you go to shows and you enter your models in different categories. This would be in 143rd open wheel competition cars. That would be, the plane would be 172nd rigged biplanes, 172nd armor. That would be, the little robot would be sci-fi. And then in the different categories, then you have different, they judge them, and you can get, you know, a first, a second, a third.
Yeah, you brought some medals, which is great.
I did,
so obviously
I
you've
did.
done well in some of these.
Some of them. I do have some of them. These are just small examples of different ones, different competitions. Sometimes you get a special award for something. This one was Best World War I Aircraft, and that was for a show, and that was for the little biplane right there.
Nice.
And it's very nice. I always like the really special awards or the different awards. I hate to sound like I'm bragging or anything like that. Over time, when you go to enough shows and you do well, or you build a lot of models, you get quite a few of medals like these, where there's they're little medallions or little something like this. And say you build 5 or 6 models and they're in different categories, like you have a plane, a figure, or something else. Well, you can walk away with 4 or 5 medals. Well, you do that to 5 or 6 shows a year, and then you do that over 5 or 6 years. And I have a box at home that you just keep putting them in because you start running out of room to do anything with some of them. And
That's great.
It is. So it's neat to get them, but like I said, I like the special ones better because they mean a little bit more.
Yeah, they're more unique. Is there some type of like a club or a governing body? I mean, who organizes
Yes,
the
there is.
competitions, and how does all that work?
There are individual clubs. I myself belong to the IPMS Livonia chapter. IPMS stands for International Plastic Modeling Society, and they originated over in the UK. And there's actually there's a U.S. Chapter or a U.S. body of IPMS. And they, through that, there are individual chapters around different towns, cities, areas. Wherever there's a group of people who get together and model, they can become an IPMS chapter. And usually they elect officers, they have meetings, notes, all the rest of that. It's just an excuse, or I don't want to say an excuse, it's just a way for people to get together who enjoy the hobby. And, they promote each other's ideas and this, that, or the other. Some of the clubs are big enough that they actually put shows on where they will, rent a space, and they'll have, different categories, and they have, the venue for the day, and it's, a show, and they judge and everything like that. And that it's a competition just like anything else. And then there's a regional show, and that, of course, you have more people usually come to that. And the competition keeps getting a little more and more at each show. There is a national show every year. They put it on, and it's usually about a 4-day event. Okay. And, usually the people in the area, I want to say you bring out the best of the best. So when you can win in a national event, it's always a big deal because, you kind of feel like that's I don't want to say the top of the mountain, but you're getting there, sort of thing. So when you can win it, it's a big deal. And every year, people attend them, and they're well attended. So it's something that, everyone who's in modeling, if it's in the area, people like to do it.
And come check things out.
Exactly.
Well, that's wonderful. So you showed us what a starting kit looks like, but I can tell from looking at what I see, there's obviously a lot more involved in getting to that finished product, right? So walk us through a little bit some of the tools and things that you use to go from what comes out of the box to this kind of a finished product.
Okay. We'll start with, like I said, something that comes on, these are called sprues or runners, and you have these parts, and you would take something like this, and these are sprue cutters, and you would take them and clip a little piece off like that. And then one of the things that you would do is, this is the X-Acto knife, which every hobbyist uses. You would clean your little parts off, and because you're trying to get it so there's no little edges or marks or anything like that. You want it to look as good as it can possibly be. So you would do that. You would take your parts off, and you have a set of directions here, which most modelers will use as a reference point as opposed to actually following them, which sometimes works out fine.
Sometimes
there are times
doesn't turn out well, huh?
Well, most of these kits are manufactured overseas, and sometimes there are steps or language translations that get lost, and so sometimes things aren't always what they should be. But you would go through and you would look at the parts and you would say, okay, I got to find B4, and you find B4 and glue it to A7, and you go through there, and that's how you start to get to your assembled kit.
Okay.
Along the way, to make things, because modelers are never satisfied with how things usually are. They have to rebuild it or scratch build it or add something to it. One of the things a lot of them do, and this comes from the railroad people, it's called photo etch. And what it is are very tiny pieces of metal, and you can fold them or make them into certain parts of the vehicle. Like say there's a toolbox on the side here. Well, the toolbox might be molded onto the plastic and it doesn't look very realistic. So you would take it off, and then there's like a little toolbox on here, and you would wind up folding it up, and it would look like it's a little box that you would attach to it. And usually they wind up looking a lot better. It's a little more detail, so to speak. There's a lot of that on that Abrams in the front up there. There's a lot of little pieces of chain and things like that you just can't mold into plastic. It just doesn't come across very well. So what you do is you use a lot of these, little pieces like that, and then it gives it a finer detail look. Okay. And so then once you get through actually building it, and one of the big processes with model building is you have to think things through all the way as to where you're going with it, what you're going to do with it, how you're going to get there. Sometimes putting a piece on, you say, I want to put it out like this, but I'm going to have to wait till I get to this part so I can finish this before I can put this on. And so, a lot of times it's like the more involved they become, the more you have to think things through and figure out exactly, how you're going to get from here to there, because sometimes it's not a linear process, and you have to, like I said, think things out and figure out, okay, if this is going to be where I want to end up, what do I got to do to get there, and what needs to go into it before I can get to that point. So once you're done building the model to where you want to get to it, then it's time to paint it. And now, once again, it's different with all different styles. Armor, you usually build the whole thing and then you paint it. Airplanes, you have to paint the cockpit and then glue the two sides together and then put the wings on. So that's all, and then that's a whole different other style of doing it. But say we're going to get to the painting part. There's a lot of different ways to paint. Usually you prime the model first with a light color, and then you can spray it with, you can either paint it with spray cans. You can paint it with a brush and just brush it on with paint like this, or you can use an airbrush. And I brought a couple examples of airbrushes. This is a trigger style airbrush. This is a gravity feed airbrush. And what you do is you have a little compressor and you hook it up to an air supply, and then you put the paint in there, and then you spray it. And that, of course, is one of those things that you have to practice
to get used to it.
Get used to it,
Yeah.
and to do it well.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating because when you first pick it up, you're like, oh, I'm going to paint beautiful models, and it doesn't happen. And it takes a long time to figure out how to do it. I think I started using one when I was about 16, and it was a different way of doing it. And it took a lot of learning
To get the technique down. Yeah. So what you've described, I mean, what I hear is a lot of kind of getting to the artistic side of having a vision of how it's going to turn out. And so how do you learn that? I mean, do you just gradually learn that as you keep trying things? Are there resources out there that you use to kind of learn, because I would imagine there's a lot of understanding things like shading and highlighting and, plus the different techniques and to use and when you would use one versus other. That's very complicated. What you've created, these are beautiful, right? And I can just tell from hearing the way you describe it, there's really a lot to learn. So how do people start to learn all of that stuff?
Well, it's like anything. You look at this and you say, oh, it's beautiful work, and I have all these examples and blah, blah, blah. Not to diminish anything, as I've told people before, if you do something for 40 some odd years and you're not good at it, you should stop.
You picked the wrong thing,
you
right?
Picked the wrong thing.
Trying to find a new hobby.
You don't really think about it, but I have been working on this stuff since I was very young, and of course, what happens with most modelers is they get into it for a while. They give it up, once the teens hit and everything, then you start running the streets with your buddies, and then the wife and kids come along. Well, then finally you have all this time because you can't go out anymore. And so you're like, well, what do I do? And it's like, well, what did I do when I was a kid? Well, I used to model. So a lot of people come usually back into it in their, I want to say, mid-30s sort of thing. And they come back as adults. And what they find is, there have been a lot of advances in model building and model techniques, and the internet is a wonderful place to find all kinds of examples and what people are doing. And the stuff that you see out there that people do is just astronomical. It's just incredible. It's great stuff. There's all kinds of reference materials and reference books. Here's one that's just devoted to making a half track. Yes, there's here's one that is it's the detailed drawings of the battleship Bismarck, and there's all kinds of 3D drawings and whatnot that show where all kinds of things go on the actual boat. And the reason that people like this is because they're trying to get the most realistic representation of the vehicle, of the figure, of whatever. So they want as much information as they can. Almost all people who build models are in some way a historian, because you find out all this information about this stuff. Other books, will actually show you the actual pictures and whatnot of the plane or the vehicle or whatever it is, And so the thing is, you're always looking, and you usually use multiple sources to try and figure out how's this going to look, or how do I want it to look. And say you're trying to figure out how to rig the airplane. 90% of the time you'll see all the pictures that show you exactly what to do, and then you won't figure out, you won't see the one picture that'll show you like where it all terminates to or something like that. So then you have to like dig through things and read, endless articles, and you're scanning and looking, and finally you'll say, I think this is it. Of course, as modelers, everyone wants it to be perfect, but I always figure if nobody else knows if I can't figure it out where it's at, probably most people aren't going to figure out where it's at either. But then there's always some guy who knows exactly where everything goes and be like, well, this is wrong.
And is happy to point it out to you, right?
They're always happy to point it out. So,
so it sounds like you need to be a little resourceful, right? If you want to really get a good result at the end. What other skills would you say are pretty typical of people who are into this type of modeling?
You have to have a lot of patience. You have to have a lot of, I don't want to say creativity, but you do have to have a lot of creativity.
It sounds like it's very creative,
It's very creative, and I always laugh about it, and I say this is actually a very, as far as a discipline, it's like creating art, because you could have 100 guys making the exact same model in a room, and you're going to get 100 variations of it. They're all different, and it's all how people look at it. And even if you get two that are almost identical, there will be variations in it. So it's like every one of these is its own representation, and no two really will ever be the same. Even if I made two of them the same, they're still going to come out different. And so I always look at it as like, to me, that's kind of like art, because it's like they're all unique, they're all different, they're all very fragile. Yet for some strange reason, I can't sell these things for a lot of money. I guess they're just not quite that arty yet. So
you have to find the right buyer for
exactly.
that.
And some people do. Everybody who's ever sat down to build a model wants to figure out how they can make money off of it and spend our lives sitting in the basement building models. But unfortunately, it's not a huge market for it. So,
you never know. You might figure that out someday.
We're all trying.
So, you mentioned that you actually started doing this when you were younger. Is this a good hobby for parents and kids to do together?
It's a very good hobby for parents and kids. Like I said, it teaches kids a lot of patience and discipline. One of the things, I have 3 children. They've all dabbled in it a little bit. My youngest, she's 8. She probably does it a little bit more than the other 2. It's one of those things that it's a very creative outlet. In today's society, and I'm just as guilty as everybody else, you're always distracted. You got the phone and the
Plugged
TV,
in, yeah.
You're plugged in. I always say that this is kind of like mental yoga, because you sit down, you start doing something, you just get lost in it. And, I always know it's time to quit when I'm blinking a lot and my eyes hurt or something like that. And you realize you've been down there for, in the basement for, hours on end. And you poke away at it. And it teaches you also, if you encounter problems, how to think around them, how to look for other solutions. Don't just give up. You got to keep going and figure out, completing a project. And it transfers, to work, to school, to all kinds of other things. I'm always encouraging young kids to get involved with model building, because I think it's really great. If nothing else, just for a hobby, something to do. Kids don't have hobbies anymore.
Yeah. TV, games,
exactly.
video games.
Well, when we were kids, we didn't have it. So if I was bored, my mom would be like, "Well, go clean the garage or something," So I was like, "Well, I'm going to go in the basement and build a bottle." So
that sounds much more interesting. Cleaning the garage, I got to agree. So to give people kind of an idea of, what kind of costs are involved, what's the minimum, and kind of where price point should you expect, right, of the basics that you need to get going in this?
I will say, over time, this went from a kid's hobby to an adult's hobby. Adults wound up, as I said, they got into it later, come back to it. And with that, there's been a flourish of kits and things that like I said, the add-ons and the different little parts like that. So they've driven the price up. The prices have gotten really high in a lot of kits, but you can still get a lot of, you can buy a decent kit if a kid wants one for no more than, anywhere $10-15 sort of thing. Sometimes they're even cheaper. If you go to Michael's or, some of those other things, they have coupons and whatnot, and you can, look around, and some of those things have sales and, that sort of stuff. But other kits, they can go upwards of a couple $100. Some of them even more than that. You can spend upwards of, $100, $200 once you start buying, the little add-ons, and there's all kinds of things you can add to it other than the photo etch. There's resin, this, that, and the other. There's, special paints. There's a lot you can do. But if you're just getting into it, a trusty X-Acto knife, a pair of little sprue cutters, maybe a little saw, some glue. You're talking at the hardware store, maybe $4 or $5 for one of those. This might be a little more specialty kind of tool. You're talking maybe $10 for that, $5 for one of those. This, a couple bucks for that. 3 or 4. I say a couple bucks, but everything seems like it's more expensive when I actually buy it. But, for a $20 investment sort of thing, you can get basically what you need to, get a kit going. And then, once again, it depends on if you want to just build it straight out of the box, you can do that. And if you want to spray paint it, you can, that's going to cost you a couple extra bucks. But you can do it cheaply. And there's a lot of stuff you can do, like adding parts and whatnot like that. You can scratch build them yourself. You can, get little pieces of plastic and actually form the parts yourself. It's not that difficult. It's all in imagination and, looking on the internet, see what the part looks like and say, hey, that sort of looks like the top to a pen or something like that. And you start looking at things like that, and you can figure out exactly, how you want to do it or what you want to do.
Very good. Very good. So you mentioned that you're part of a club and that the clubs are often associated with the competitions and that kind of thing. Are there also club meetings? Do you get together regularly? What would people expect if they attended one of the meetings? What are the kind of things that you guys do together?
See a bunch of old middle-aged men sitting around talking about toys. There's... That's not too far off.
You want to encourage people. Now, come on.
No, there's, yes, we do meet. We meet once a month. Some clubs meet more frequently, but more once a month. We meet over at the Pearson Center over on 7 Mile, the Livonia chapter. Usually what we do is we come in and we will either have a demo or something like that of like a modeling technique. Sometimes it's how to do photo etch, how to put washes on a vehicle, how to make snow, any number of things, how to paint faces.
Okay.
Other times we will have a contest month where every other month we will, whatever we've built in that amount of time, the club members will put out, and then we'll have like an impromptu, or not an impromptu, but we'll have a contest, amongst the members, and it's just for bragging rights, basically.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So, as we wrap up, it's been really great hearing from you.
Thank you.
If someone is interested in getting started in this, what is your advice to them on the best way to get going?
Best way to get going, like I said, you can go to one of the hobby stores. There's one right next door, Nankin Hobby, and they can point you to the direction of all the things you need basically to get started. Like I said, you need a little X-Acto knife, a little pair of clippers, some paints, a couple brushes, that sort of thing. And then start out with a basic kit, something small, and usually any reputable hobby store will tell you, hey, this is my first time. I like planes, I like this, I like that. There's always an entry level something that you can pick up. And, a lot of times people they lose interest because they start with a kit that's way too complicated.
Okay.
And a lot of times it's better to talk to somebody and say, hey, what's a good thing to start out with?
Okay.
And,
So pick a kit that's appropriate for a beginner.
Yep.
and just try it out.
That's exactly it.
All right.
Yep.
And do another plug for your club. So if people want to find you guys, are you on the internet? They can look you
We
up?
are. We're at www.ipmslivonia.org.
Okay.
And that's our website. And we're also on Facebook. And like I said, we meet the second Tuesday of every month at the Pearson Center over on 7 Mile.
Excellent. Well, Ian, thank you so much for sharing your hobby with
No,
us. We
thank
really
you.
appreciate
It was
it.
a lot of fun.
All right.
Yeah.
So that wraps up another episode of Exploring Hobbies. Please look for more episodes in the future.